Hey y'all, hi. What a video I have prepared for you today. I'm gonna call it Old Makeup That Still Slays. It was kind of a roller coaster. It's pretty self-explanatory, right? I went through my makeup collection and I pulled together a bunch of products that I've owned for at least a year, most of them much longer than a year, that I think of as still being really good makeup. And then I just sat down and I put it all on my face. If this is your first time to my channel, then welcome. I'm glad you clicked on this video. My name is Hannah and I do love reviewing new makeup, but I also like to make content that reminds me and reminds us that just because makeup isn't brand new or newly released doesn't mean that it's not exciting anymore or not good anymore. This is like the quintessential HLP video. And if you like it, I hope you'll subscribe. Now, let's go ahead and get into the meat of the video. All right, y'all, I'm so excited about this. I really have this feeling like, have I got a video for you? That's how I feel. But I think it's just because I'm excited to use these products that I really love and that I have fond memories of, but haven't used in a while. It's feeling very novel and thrilling to me, the idea of putting on a full face of things that aren't things I'm testing for review, things that are new to the market, but are things with which I have history and about which I have deep knowledge. And I also think some of you are going to be like, oh yeah, because all of these have been spotlit extensively in the past on my channel. First up, I'm actually going to do that thing where I prime different parts of my face with different things. This is a pretty deep cut, the Wet n Wild Glass Correct in green, a gorgeous wet look product, really great for dry skin. And this is actually the primer that I used when I got married. I'm going to use the e.l.f. Poreless Putty Primer just under my eyes, close to my nose where my pores tend to stand out the most, and maybe a little bit in my marionette lines where I don't want it to be as dewy. There's the Wet n Wild Glass Correct. It's not the greenest, you know what I mean? If it were up to me, I would have it be much greener and more aggressively color correcting. That would be kind of like my dream product. But it is very glass skin, very wet look, and it has a nourishing, melty, skincare quality as well. In fact, I feel like this is the closest thing you're gonna get at the drugstore to the Danessa Myricks Yummy Skin. It's not the same, you know, it has more body, it's a stiffer product, it's not that gooey, syrupy product like Danessa Myricks. But in terms of what it does and what one might use it for, it's pretty close. And I wish I had remembered to mention it in that video about hero products, because I feel like this could be somebody's hero, somebody that doesn't want to spend what the Danessa Myricks Yummy Skin Serum costs, but needs something that does what it does. So I'm just going to put a little bit of the e.l.f. Poreless Putty Primer in some key areas. So just right here, you can see the difference that it made, right? Even on top of that really dewy product, it's still glossy, but it's not so wet look reflective. Same on the other side, and then like around the sides of my chin and mouth. I've been dealing with very, very dry skin lately. That thing happened where I was just a little bit optimistic at my skin's ability to handle some actives and some skincare that I'm testing, even though it's a bit sensitized because of retinol. My skin barrier got compromised or pH got thrown off or something, and it's just been simultaneously kind of leaching like an oil sort of thing and also really dry and peely on top. And there's really nothing but time and pampering to bring it back from that. And we're almost back, but I do need quite a nourishing base today. And the combination of these two things has left my skin feeling good, feeling like it can handle makeup. I also have these blemishes, as you can see. It's just been kind of a tough skin like week and a half, but the show must go on, as they say. So I'm pulling out this oldie, still goodie, and maybe time to retire-y, because when I pulled it for this video, I was like, wait a second, how old actually is that? It's the Makeup Forever Ultra HD Concealer in the shade Pearl. And this was what I found when I went on a hunt for the most skin-like concealer at Sephora or anywhere that I could, you know, try it in person. So it was pretty much at Sephora at that time. It was the most skin-like concealer, like the concealer that was the least detectable as makeup on the skin, that came in a shade that was pretty close to my skin tone back before there was such a thing as the Rose Ink Concealer, which is actually a great match for my skin tone. And kind of back before I really got that I was looking for something kind of gray, olive, neutral, like super neutral. Because this, the shade Pearl, it is pale enough to work for me, which was really exciting at the time. And it has that kind of bright neutrality, but all things said and done, it's a little more saturated with kind of like a yellow pigment than the Rose Ink one, the RMS foundation, the things that really, really match me well. But the consistency is fantastic. I don't think it's the oldest, but I think it's probably too old for me to like keep and optimistically think that I'll continue to use, you know? I'm just gonna use it for this video and then probably its fate will be sealed. And I'm going to use a bit of the NYX HD Green Color Correct. This isn't that old. This dates back to when I tried all the green color correctors at Ulta, which wasn't that long ago, but I've had it for longer than I've had the one from Exa, which is the one that I tend to default to. And I think that this concealer is gonna need a little bit of olive tinting. I had forgotten how lightly pigmented this concealer is. So that smear that I put under my eye, which is about this much, it only really covered this much of my face. And then down here is mostly just the green color corrector. It's pretty serumy, which is part of what makes it so skin-like. Okay, so because that concealer is nothing if not brightening, like the issue isn't that it's not light enough, the issue is that the shade isn't quite right. To tinker with it, I'm going to use a really, really old for me product. This pot of it isn't that old, but this is something that's been in my collection for a really long time. It's the NARS Soft Matte Complete Concealer, and it's in the shade Chantilly. NARS leans a little bit yellow, but pretty neutral. And this is the lightest shade, and it is neutral enough to work for me, especially as a spot concealer. It's a little darker than, you know, my ideal concealer. It's a little on the dark side, but when I'm spot concealing, I'm usually wanting that spot to kind of recede and fade away, so it's okay that's a little bit darker than the rest of my skin. And now, because my face is so brightened, I feel like I can afford to go in with some of this to add a little bit of coverage, and it's not going to make my face too much darker than my neck. Okay, so I did some spot concealing. You can see how effective it is as a spot conceal, and some general coverage adding, like, you know, the redness around my nose. But overall, I feel like I'm still looking pretty white, you know, that sort of pasty white from a concealer that's bright, but then just like not quite the right shade. It's still the makeup forever. Another reason to retire this product that I thought was so great back in the day, but actually wasn't what I needed. But hopefully the addition of a couple of powders will balance everything out. Starting with, remember this? The Givenchy Prisme Libre powder. I'm not a big powder buyer. I'm not really a powder connoisseur. Givenchy sent this in PR ages ago, and I just used it and used it and used it forever. And recently I've been using the Kosas powder, and even more recently than that, the Make Beauty powder. They're both great, but they're a little bit more mochi skin powders, maybe designed to kind of retain some dewiness. This is a little bit more matte, and it has that color correcting quality. And I just haven't used it in ages. I remember it being really effective and all purpose, but I just don't really, I don't know. I don't know if I quite have like a full grasp on what it did compared to the powders that I currently use. So let's see. Okay, I just put it on this side, and I used it to set the spot conceal a little bit under the eyes, and I also put it in my marionette lines. It looks like it helped mattify a bit, but without making it too matte. Definitely looks seamless on the skin. I mean, I've always been attracted to things that are, as I said before, kind of undetectable as makeup, and for a loose powder especially. I had kind of forgotten that that was a really impressive quality of this. Oh yeah, and now I'm remembering that I had figured out that I really liked using it like this. Just a little bit of the powder, like just the imprint from there, rather than dipping it into a full lid and actually like pressing it into the skin. Oh my gosh, I like that. Especially on a day like today where my skin under there is just really wanting to act up. It's like my skin in its current state, it wants to break up the makeup from underneath. And this is really helping make it more seamless. Isn't it funny? It's like not just products, but techniques that you use for a while and then they just sort of get replaced by new things you're trying, and you kind of forget things that worked so well for you before. Yeah, that puff is everything to me right now. Congratulations, Givenchy Prisme Libre, you're back. You're back in the running. Okay, I really feel like that made the base look more natural on me, even though it isn't quite what I would usually choose. But I am gonna go in with this very oldie, but very goodie. This is genuinely a very old piece of makeup, but it's, you know, it's a finely milled powder. It's holding up just fine. They actually don't even sell it in this size anymore. It's the Kevyn Aucoin Neo Highlighter. They sell it in a much more practical and more affordable, smaller size. I'm gonna use the lightest side of this just to try to give my neck a little bit of a peachier color so that it's not so much pointing out the pinkness of my face by contrast. I think there might have been some bronzer on this brush. I need to wash my brushes. It helped a little bit. We'll bring it back when we get to the rest of the complexion. Although actually, I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'm gonna go ahead and do the cheeks. Yeah, because I do want a strong cheek look today. I think I'm gonna be tempted to go hard on the eyes. I'm gonna put on a strong cheek, which will really help me rein it in on the eyes. So this is the Neo Nude Melting Color Balm. This was a gift from my wonderful friend Róen of Lauren May Beauty. It's in the shade 20. And I've had it for quite a while, maybe getting close to 2 years at this point. As you can see, I've used a lot of it, but it's more just about the fact that this has always been kind of like top of the pile. It just never seems to get lost and sucked into the back of the drawer. I haven't featured it recently on my channel, but it's always kind of there in my life. It's just a really good example of something that I've had for a long time, but that endures. You know, I love a brown blush, and this is one that has quite a rosy undertone, especially on my complexion. So it doesn't necessarily read as brown, but it's brown enough so that it can work as a rose-leaning neutral on me. Okay, that is a pretty strong look. And you know what I'm gonna do now? This is more of the Givenchy powder. Just powder on the edges of it. Okay, let's put on some eye makeup. Actually, let's put on some eyebrow makeup. So I already set my brows in place with the Patrick Ta brow gel. It's not old, but I don't have any very old brow products lying around. I tend to use them up. So I did that off camera, but I'm gonna fill them in a little bit with this e.l.f. brow pomade in medium brown, which is like a really great dark and kind of ashy taupey brown. I'm using this teeny tiny Rephr brush, the 34, which is a new brush from Rephr. I haven't used this in a really long time, if I remember correctly. A little bit goes a long way, so that's part of why I'm using this tiny brush, and I'm gonna try to go slow. Okay, I did go slow in that I treaded delicately, you know what I mean? I just did a little bit at a time, but in point of fact, it took me almost no time at all to do that because I was able to be so precise and effective with this little brush and with this very pigmented product that's really doing exactly what I want. I mean, it took less than a minute to get it from this to this. Kind of a dark horse, but I feel like this is one of the ones that's definitely in the running to return to the front and center of my vanity. Like, I want to use this again the next time I do my brows. And its inclusion in this video was a little bit of an afterthought, actually. But I'm so glad I decided to grab it. Okay, struggling a little bit to get them to look even, but I think it's not the technique. The technique is still really winning for me. I think my natural brows are kind of uneven right now. Or maybe my whole face is uneven. But I love the end result. I love the color. I love how easy it is to use the product. I actually thought it was going to be dried out when I opened it because it's old, and it wasn't. Excellent. Let us move on to the eyes, finally. I pulled a lot of old friends, starting with the Alter Ego eye primer, which is a really, really good eye primer. This is actually a new tube of it. They sent it to me recently because they launched a new palette for the first time in kind of a long time. And obviously I'm not using it in this video, but this is something that I have used a lot in the past and really enjoyed. So I thought it would be better to use it than the same eye primer that I've just been using every time I do my makeup for the past year. And now, please welcome to the stage the famous Róen quads, which were actually the inspiration for this video. I was getting ready to go out to dinner a couple of nights ago, and I didn't have very much time. And I wanted a smudgy, easy, effortless eye look that was a little bit glitzy and bronzy and messy. I didn't want it to look like I had tried too hard. I didn't want to try too hard. I didn't have the time to try too hard. And the Róen 75 Degrees Warm Quad was just sitting there on my vanity, and I just snatched it up and I started using it, and I was like, slay. I was just like, I can't believe these creams are still performing years later. The pigment is amazing. The look was amazing. I mean, they just always bring what they say they're gonna bring. All four of them are destroyed. I mean, back in the day, I used these more than anything else for eye makeup, and I think I want to start using them again more than I have been. I'm gonna use the original, the classic 75 degrees warm today, and I'm using Nikki Dust, which is the one that I have pan on here, obviously my favorite. So I just put that all over with my lids and kind of into my crease with my finger. If you're new to these, if you haven't seen all of my old content about these, they do crease, especially if you apply a lot, which I tend to do. They're pretty imprecise. They do end up looking like you applied your eye makeup with your fingers in the bathroom and you're really cool, but that's the look that I'm going for most of the time, and that's why I get along with these so well. So I'm going to take the gold shade here, which is called Obviously, and use that as my brow bone highlight and to kind of create a transition between the one I put on my lids and my brows, my brow bone. And I'm also kind of putting it all over. Okay, and now I am going to use a little brush in the darkest shade, this darker taupe J'adore, just to darken the outer corner a little bit. And putting on my lower lash line too. I mean, honestly. And I kept layering on the bronze of J'adore because I just love that bronzy gold and those like thick layers of this flaky cream on top of each other. That's what's going to cause it to crease. But I knew what I was getting into. This is only about a year old. For me, it's the Victoria Beckham Bronze Eye Kajal, but it has become a classic in my life. It's the only eyeliner that I've ever truly loved. Just going to put a little bit of it in my waterline. When I went to look for eye makeup that is old but still slays, I couldn't pick just one thing, and by one thing I mean the Róen quads, or I guess two, the quads and the Victoria Beckham. There were these other products that I just felt like I had to include, and actually they're both from Urban Decay. One of them is the famous Space Cowboy, and I thought, why not just tap this all over my lids to complete the look? It has a bit of a blue reflect, a little bit of grunge, but it's mostly just sheer wet look shine, and it will help actually to set these creams. So yeah, my lids, I mean, they were already very glossy, but Space Cowboy just adds that like drenched Vaseline-y shine to anything and a little bit of color. And here's the other Urban Decay product that I've had for so long. This is a product that I've loved since before my no-buy year, before I started my channel. I haven't owned this particular one since then. I've acquired it more recently than that, maybe 2 years ago. But to me, it's just such a classic product. It's the Urban Decay Heavy Metals liner. And I love to use it as a liner, like just trace along the lash line. It'll probably be kind of subtle, especially from there, given that I didn't zoom in. But yeah, you can see the difference, right? Especially when I close my eyes or when I blink, you can see it shining from my lash line right there. This is such a great product for parties, a great piece of makeup to own if you don't own very much makeup or you don't really wear eye makeup. It's easy to apply, just like drag the brush along your lash line and then, you know, put mascara on your lashes if you want to. It's impossible to mess up, you know, because even if the glitter strays a little bit, it just looks great. And it's so effective when you're talking one-on-one to someone, like in dim lighting or in the corner at a party. A really chic, fun option. I like using it to finish eye looks like this, but it's just great worn on its own as well. This one is in the shade Distortion. It's kind of like, you know, iridescent white glitter, but I used to have the gold one too, and I loved that one. I had to get rid of it. I think it went bad. I had had it for like 5 years, but those are my two favorites. Okay, mascara. I'm using e.l.f. Big Mood. You know, I try not to keep mascaras for too long. This is one I've had for a bit of a while. It's also probably pretty much time to retire it, but I feel like it is a recent classic kind of on my channel. I thought it would work for this look. This is what the wand looks like. It's very fluffy and like hairy. And you know how they say that the mascara wand kind of indicates what it'll make your lashes look like? I don't think that's always true, but I do think it is true in this case. Yeah, a truly old school HLP eye look, I feel, is what we've gotten here. But one of my favorite ever. I mean, I just love this bronzy drenched situation. And with the glitter along the lash line, you would think it would be too much, but it's kind of not, you know? Very pleased with that. And I'm a little bit regretting my choice now for the lip. I picked out Gucci Goldie Red, the Gucci Rouge à Lèvres. This dates back to when I first reviewed Gucci makeup. I just got two products, this and the Gucci mascara, which is another product that I've used for a long time and think is really great. The Rouge à Lèvres formula from Gucci, it is like a semi-sheer, you know? It smells like violet candy, which I think is such a great choice for them. And it has pigment. I was saying I regretted it because it's, you know, it's bright red and I just feel like it's gonna be a lot. And I wish the eyes were just the main event, but we're following through. So yeah, it's not a lipstick. Yeah, it's not a lipstick. I feel like it has more pigment than you might be led to believe by the advertising pictures or like the listing pictures. And I remember being surprised by how pigmented it was. But if you want to wear it in that like barely there way, you can blot it down. And it wears away really elegantly. And here I feel like it's not quite a lipstick. You know what I mean? Just from blotting it once. So a versatile, luxurious, elegant product. And now that it's blotted, I actually feel like it's kind of working with everything. I'm here for it. I'm okay with it. I concede. The old makeup knows what it's doing. And that is it. What an absolute pleasure. I would say in many cases, my old makeup is better than my new makeup. And I've kind of just forgotten about it. And in some cases, my new makeup is way, way better than what I used to use. I'm looking at you, Makeup Forever, pale pink paste. And you know, it's partly because things have come to the market that work for me better. And it's also just that I've learned more about what I'm looking for and what I want and what I need. So as ever, there's no clear takeaway here, except for maybe, you know, dig back in your drawers and don't completely forget your old makeup because some of it might be better than you even remember. I feel like this has demonstrated that it is good, especially dealing with the complexion stuff. It is good to kind of keep getting to know yourself better in makeup, especially if this is something you enjoy. You can make progress and find things that work better than what you were using, but if you carry that out too far to its logical conclusion and you think that every new thing that comes on the market is better than what you're using before, you'll be fooling yourself because in many cases what you leave behind is actually better than the stuff that's coming out now. And I think in many of these cases, I mean, this eye look, I just really, really like how that came out, and I don't think that would be getting quite this with the things that I've been using the most over the past 2 or 3 months. And even the Givenchy powder, right? That powder puff pressing technique, that also reminded me of a tool that's in my toolbox that I wish I had never put down. I'm gonna put my mole back on. Thank you so much for being here. I'm curious to know what you think. I think there are gonna be a lot of you who've never seen me use any of these products before because you're new to my channel and they are older than your presence here and you've just been watching the new videos as they come out. And then there are gonna be some of you who like remember all of these and know the whole story and the whole history. And just let me know what you think in the comments down below. And if you care to share with us one of your makeup products that is an oldie that still slays, please do share that with us. All right, I'm gonna go. Don't forget to take extra good care of yourself so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.